a little presentation for us dealing with it. Greg works with the Shepherd's Crook, which is one of the ministries that we as a church support. So we're glad to have Greg here to share with us about the Shepherd's Crook.
For those of you who have been here for a few years, we know that every year on Orphan Sunday, Christy and I, or one of us, comes up here and talks about orphan care. We've talked about the importance of adoption. We've talked about the plight of the orphan around the world. We've talked about how adoption mirrors the gospel. We've talked about how the Bible places the family at the center of a child's life and the importance of a family, the importance of a child, the importance for a child to grow up in an environment of nurture and admonition, encouragement and instruction and discipline. But one thing that we haven't done is talk specifically about what we at the Shepherd's Crook do and how you and anybody else can come alongside the work that we do and be involved in orphan care. Because in reality, as you've probably heard before from other people, orphan care isn't really an option for Christians. More than a dozen times throughout Scripture, God commands his people to care for orphans, to care for widows, to care for the needy. It's a consistent command that he places on his people. And just like with being involved in evangelism, we might not all be called to adopt, we might not all be called to, live overseas as a foreign missionary, but we are all called to be involved in the care of orphans in some way. And this is a point, like I said, that is made throughout the Old Testament into the New Testament. And in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17, among other places, God actually specifically commands his people to bring justice to the fatherless. And when you think about bringing justice to somebody, the dishing out of justice brings to mind the punishment of wrongdoing and the rewarding of right behavior. But it's more than just that, because in order to get to the point of knowing what's right and what's wrong and who's at fault in a situation, you first have to hear the case. You have to hear what's going on, and you have to consider carefully the rights of the parties involved, and you have to weigh them appropriately. And this is where God's people in the Old Testament failed considerably. Throughout the prophets, God calls the kings, the priests, the ruling class to task for failing to do this. And not only did they fail to hear the case of the orphan and to care for them, they went so far as to oppress them, to exploit them, to do violence against them. They did not see orphans and widows and the other poor and needy as people who were valuable, people made in God's image, people who were worth caring for. And God made it very clear that that was by no means acceptable. They did not have a voice. They didn't have somebody to plead their case for them and to make it known. And that's what, like I said, that's where the people fell down in the Old Testament. But that's precisely the point at which we try to step in today, because we see a similar thing happening around the world today. The number of orphans around the world is very hard to nail down. We've talked about that before. It's in the tens of millions. But there are many orphans around the world who are considered undesirable, unwanted. It's because they have some sort of a special need, whether it's a minor physical or developmental special need or a considerable one. They're considered undesirable, unfit for adoption by many. And so they're relegated to lives in institutions, in orphanages. Lives lived outside of the normal human interaction, lived outside of families, lived outside of society by and large. And like I said, this is where we step in. We work with about 20 different adoption agencies, and they list these waiting children with us. And you can see some of their names and faces showing up behind me. That actually worked. And these are the kids that we advocate for. These are the children who don't have a voice. And so we aim to give them that voice, to give them that platform. There are approximately 260 of these children listed on our website right now. And it's sort of a rolling basis. Kids are added frequently, kids are taken off for various reasons, but there are between 250 and 300 kids just on our website at any given point. And that's just a small subset of these kids who are waiting out there around the world. And like I said, we put them on our website to give them a voice, to give them a platform, to provide a way for people to know about their stories, to know what's going on with them. Because these are real kids with real hopes, real fears, real dreams, real insecurities, real desires, and a real need for families, each and every one of them. And so in our efforts to advocate for them, we put them on our website. We can accept donations to go towards their adoptions. Every single time that a child is added to our website, we put the child on our Tumblr blog. And we do that to give a specific voice for kids so people can stay apprised of what's going on. That way each child gets a specific bit of advocacy out there that people can follow. We wish we could send out emails for all of them, but it's just unrealistic to send out an email for every single child on our website. We would be sending more than one email a day, and the noise would just become so much that it wouldn't be effective advocacy. But we do, every other month or so, send out an email focusing on 3 or 4 of the children on our website, telling their stories more particularly. And this is one way in which anybody can be involved in orphan care. You can follow our Tumblr blog, you can look at our website, you can get our emails, there's a sign-up sheet on the table out there, and you can read about these kids. You can consider if you know of anybody who might be a good adoptive family for them. You can consider whether you might be the right adoptive family for them yourselves. And one thing that we often do at the end of our emails is ask people to pray for these kids. And that might sound like a trite thing, it might sound like a bit of a cop-out answer that you can be involved in orphan care by praying for them. But it is no small thing. Because when we pray for anybody, in particular when we pray for these kids, we're bringing their cases, we're bringing their situations before the sovereign king of the universe. The sovereign king who called out the kings and rulers of his own people for not caring for them. And so when we pray for them, that creates a bit of a connection for us, and it is an effective advocacy tool. And we need more people praying for these children and for the families who will adopt them, that God will work in their hearts and bring them forward.